Hello, dear friends. This has been a Monday full of important news. Signs of change are more abundant every day, despite the fact that nothing ever happens according to some. The goal is to pretend that everything remains the same so as not to alarm people. But the world has changed and continues to change, hopefully for the better, even if it smells bad. Opinion piece. A troubled world. It's a mad world. War and rumors of war. Tension rises in Ukraine. Threat against Taiwan continues. Will London Bridge fall down? Queen has sprained back. New advanced quantum chips from IBM. Coal hits 12 years high. China Evergrande heads for bankruptcy. Will be revealed the identity of the creator of Bitcoin? What would happen if the world changed completely? European Union to draw up plan to rival China. Hackers threaten supply chain. Preparations for the return to the moon go through Lanzarote. Bezos predicts few people will be able to stay on Earth. Let's start. The world is shaken and not stirred, unlike the vodka martini ordered by 007 Bond agent James Bond. Everyone is shaken through this life without a user's manual of how, with a dash of grace and good humor, we can walk through it. To agitate is to provoke political or social unrest, and in psychology, agitation is an emotional disorder characterized by disordered and confused bodily hyperactivity. In quotes, it's a mad world. It's a 1963 comic epic film directed by Stanley Kramer. It features, among others, Jerry Lewis and Buster Keaton. They all embark on a mad, wild, desperate race to get to Santa Rosita Park on the California coast to get their hands on some loot, as the first one to arrive and find it is the lucky owner. Each of them will progressively lose their sanity, developing a crazy race, trying as much as possible to stop each other or harm the rest, thus producing very, very funny and amusing situations. This crazy race represents the countries of the world. I don't think the blood will reach the river, because we are intervened by those from above, and a conflict would have broken out long ago if there was no containment dike. But it seems that some people are desperately looking for war because they have run out of money. There will be no peace among nations until the true peace that lies within the soul of the human being is known. The great problem with the world is that fools are always so sure of themselves, and the wisest people are so full of doubt, according to Bertrand Russell. Threats. Australia and China threaten war over Taiwan. NATO and Russia threaten war over Ukraine as tensions rise between Russia and Ukraine. Intelligence officials have revealed that on the night of November 14th-15th, 2021, Russia positioned its special forces at several points along the border with Ukraine. This formation is the same one seen days before the annexation of the Crimean Peninsula in 2014. NATO says it is prepared to fight a Russian invasion of Ukraine. Consent over militarization of Europe's eastern flank. Concern in Europe over increased military pressure on its eastern flank. Poland has sent 15,000 soldiers to the border with Belarus in the midst of the migration crisis. but of greater concern as are Russian troop movements on the Ukrainian border. The US has alerted his European allies about the increase of its military presence, an accusation that Moscow rejects. European Union strategic compass. The chaotic withdrawal of Western troops from Afghanistan showed how dependent Europe is on military matters. This is one of the reasons that have led the European Union to rethink its geostrategic positioning, and the idea of creating a community army is one again on the table. The document containing these ideas has been baptized Strategic Compass. Ukraine prepares for a possible migration invasion from Belarus. Ukraine is preparing for a repetition of the migration crisis between Poland and Belarus on its border, and accuses Russia of being behind the massive arrival of undocumented migrants at the gates of the European Union. In quotes, most of the border is not protected. There are no physical barriers between our countries, commented Artem Shevchenko, spokesman for the Ukrainian Interior Ministry. European Union to expand sanctions against Belarus over migration pressure. The European Union on Monday agreed to expand the sanctions regime against Belarus to retaliate against individuals, entities and agencies involved in migration flows orchestrated by Alexander Lukashenko's government, and will adopt a new round of measures in a matter of days. Russia. NATO wants Russia over military build-up in Ukraine. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg warned Russia on Monday that the Western military alliance was supporting Ukraine amid an unusually large concentration of Russian troops on Ukraine's borders. British Army Chief warns they must be prepared for war with Russia. The Chief of Staff of the British Armed Forces, General Sir Nick Carter, warned Sunday that the UK must be prepared for open war with Russia following recent tensions in Eastern Europe, although he said he did not believe Russian President Vladimir Putin wants a hot war with the West. Russia unveils new Pilotless warplane. Russia's State Development Corporation has announced that it is working on a new advanced unnamed military drone that can soar above clouds and hide from enemy defenses while being controlled from the safety of the ground. International events. Certain international events such as global economic collapse, a solar storm causing an internet blackout, the outbreak of war, earthquakes, and the resulting in international chaos would instigate a global internet and media takeover. The activation of that quantum internet would trigger a global financial reset along with the disclosure of over 500,000 sealed indictments and arrests. They say that in order for disclosure and currency reset to happen, the coalition would take over the internet and media by activating the quantum internet. All the structures we use as a society would be moved to quantum. First, quantum internet, transparent and hackable. Second, quantum voting, no more election fraud. Third, quantum financial system, no more financial fraud. Fourth, quantum education system, no more mind-controlled education. IBM claims its new quantum chips could set new standards. IBM claimed Monday to have developed a new quantum computer chip that could beat traditional chips at some tasks in just a few years. The company's Eagle chip contains 127 qubits and is the first to contain more than 100 qubits. The company plans to develop Osprey and Condor chips with 433 qubits and 1,121 qubits respectively, starting in 2022. Welcome to the start of the quantum voting system. A Farsight Bilbo quantum voting was placed in Miami, Florida, and will expand to other cities this week and also to the UK. Washington, D.C. is empty. No nightlife, empty trains, empty buildings, and a strong stench is reported across the city from subway tunnels that were flooded and emptied. Trade slowdown. Global trade in goods is slowing after a strong rebound following the initial impact of the crisis, as disruptions in production and supply and cooling demand for imports slow growth, the World Trade Organization said Monday. Flying monsters. A crisis-driven air cargo boom is providing a ripe backdrop for Airbus and Boeing to launch new flying monsters. Cryptocurrencies will be identified. The identification of Bitcoin's creator be revealed. The true identity of Bitcoin's alleged creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, one of the best kept secrets in the financial world, may finally be revealed in a Florida court, the Wall Street Journal reported Saturday, although others believe it is a name invented by a three-letter agency. New inflation proof. Cryptocurrency is born that helps save dogs in need. The new Doge token has a mascot similar to the Dogecoin dog, and its creator indicate that it will emulate that cryptocurrency with the help of Elon Musk. Markets. Dollar rises as Wall Street falters amid inflation worries. The dollar rose to a 16-month high on Monday, while stocks fell in midday trading after a strong opening. Inflation drives gold prices to 5-month highs. Gold futures are the highest in nearly 6 months, boosted by widespread inflation. The Wall Street Journal reported that the most traded gold futures rose 2.9% to 1,868.5 a troy ounce. Coal hits 12-year high. The price of coal rose to its highest level in more than a dozen years, threatening to inflate electricity bills, which have already soared, indicating that the dirty fuel will not be phased out anytime soon. Hackers threaten global supply chain. As the global supply chain struggles in the aftermath of the crisis, spreading suffering to nearly every industry, cyber criminals are descending on vulnerabilities to create more dangerous disruptions. According to a report from cyber intelligence firm Intel 471, all key sectors of the global supply chain are under attack. Spain continues with its plan to close nuclear power plants, opting to burn gas when there is no wind or sun. The Iberian country is the second European member that generates the most nuclear energy, only behind France. That is why the sector is pushing for Madrid to follow the example of Paris and build nuclear power plants to complement renewables. However, the Spanish authorities insist on a complete transition to clean energy. La Palma volcano has less energy. The decrease in the level of sulfur dioxide emanating from the La Palma volcano and intermediate depth earthquake points to the fact that the volcanic system has less and less energy, according to scientists analyzing the eruption. The European Space Agency astronaut training program has returned to Lanzarote after almost 3 years of hiatus to continue teaching geological exploration techniques to candidates to participate in future missions to the Moon and Mars, taking advantage of its vast expanses of lava and volcanic scoria. Ford ends the year with 60% less production and without 1,000 employees in Spain. The Ford plant in Valencia will close a 2021 of sustained production decline for 2 years, between 55 and 60% lower than 2019, which has had, among other consequences, that the workforce has 1,000 less workers due to the application of 2 redundancy plans. Cuba reopens its doors to international tourism. Cuba reopened its doors to international tourism on Monday, heading towards a new normality, seeking to oxygenate its battered economy, which is going through the most serious crisis in 3 decades due to the impact of the crisis, the reinforcement of the embargo, and ineffective management. Large police deployment in Havana. Arrests of opponents and a large police deployment to prevent Cuba's citizens from joining the so-called Civic March for Change. Hundreds of agents, some uniformed and others in civilian clothes, patrol the streets of Havana, guard its squares, or remain stationed on the corners looking for any suspicious movement. United Kingdom. The Queen is injured. BBC News. The Queen has missed Sunday service of remembrance at London's cenotaph because she sprained her back in a back strain. Buckingham Palace said the 95-year-old monarch was disappointed not to attend the event. Will London Bridge fall down? They talked about the process and steps the royal family would take to announce the Queen's passing. The first thing would be a social media blackout, which would mean that the time would have come. Following the announcement of the Queen's death, the UK and perhaps the Commonwealth would stop working for 3 days in a row in 10 days of mourning. Everything would come to a halt: stock markets, social networks, etc. The royal family website would be transformed into a black page with a short statement. Liverpool Explosion raises terror alert. The United Kingdom on Monday raised its national terror alert level to severe following a car explosion outside a hospital in Liverpool, northern England, on Sunday, that left 1 dead and 1 injured. European Union to develop plan to rival China. The European Union will announce this week a new overseas infrastructure investment program aimed at competing with China's flagship Belt and Road Initiative. The EU's so-called Global Gateway would focus on digital transition, clean energy, conversion, transport, people-to-people connections, and resilient trade and supply chains. China Evergrande heads for bankruptcy in days. Although Evergrande had managed to meet bond payments on November 10th, experts insist the company is poised for bankruptcy. So large is the debt facing the real estate giant that Evergrande is expected to file for bankruptcy in a matter of days. China accuses US of undermining trade rules after Washington rejected Intel's plan to manufacture microchips in the Asian nation. China's foreign ministry spokesman commented that the rejection of Intel's plan for chip production in the Asian giant is another sign that trade barriers undermine international trade rules. China overtake US in race for global wealth. China has overtaken the United States as the nation that has accumulated the highest net worth as a global wealth rises. A new report from McKinsey & Co. suggests China's wealth soared over the past 2 decades, the consulting firm said, according to Bloomberg, explaining that its net worth increased 70-fold from $7 billion in 2000 to $120 billion in 2020, which is equivalent to 1/3 of the increase in global net worth during that period. Reflections. Bezos predicts only a limited number of people could remain on Earth. Humankind would move most of industry into space and allow only a selected few to remain on our planet, which would become a natural resort according to space explorer Jeff Bezos. He expects large rotating cylindrical space colonies to generate artificial gravity for millions of residents to take over most of the industrial production. Meanwhile, Earth would become a nature preserve with restricted access similar to national parks today. Buffness said, "Things are changing day by day, and it's all for the better. Appreciate the hard work being done and be patient a little longer. The troops are gathering resources and making progress in rounding up the reprobates. We are seeing some intriguing aspects of all of this beginning to fade at this time. There are a number of issues that imply and put pressure on the final results. Be that as it may, we are also seeing changes and loosening of the ropes. Discovery of criminal activity continues to move forward, lest those designated complete their work." Let those. No, not less. Let. To give permission. To give permission. Messages. The divine armor. Be strong in the Lord and in his great power. To put on the full armor of God so that you can stand against the devil's schemes. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit. We fight for humankind. The return of the goddess. I believe that humankind has entered a new era of feminine divinity. I believe that women everywhere have yet to discover their true power and majesty, and this frightens certain types of men. I believe that when men see women for what they are, as daughters of God, only then do men truly become sons of the light. What if the world changed completely? By Arcturian Council 9D. Do you think you want things to change on Earth as if they did? What if everything changed, but no one in a human body was willing to change themselves? In the end, you would have the same problems. That is why the only way to change the outer reality would be to change yourself in your essence and make those changes lasting, and make them the changes you really desire as a soul. An ego doesn't like challenges, because an ego just wants to know that everything will be okay, that it will be safe, comfortable, taken care of, etc. But the soul craves those challenges, because a soul knows that its journey is to grow and evolve, to expand and become more energy source on an experiential level. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.